Hello and welcome to the Monarchist General Podcast. I am Secretive Cody, the owner of Monarchist General. I am an American absolutist monarchist with libertarian ethics, and I follow Germanic paganism. I have 4 friends with me here, and we're going to do our best at introducing monarchism in general and our personal views. So first we have Awesome Autocrat here.
Hello, yes, as you heard, my name is the Awesome Autocrat. I am a semi-constitutionalist from the UK, and I am a Christian, more specifically Protestant Church of England.
And we have Top Hat PhD.
Greetings, though I don't actually have a PhD, it's just part of my name. That's a joke. I am an American. I am a constitutionalist, and I am an atheist.
Kodali.
Hi, my name's Kodali. I'm an American Christian, general authoritarian, kind of on the fence about monarchism.
And finally, Talato Ani. I probably butchered that name.
Not really. Hi, I'm Tlatoani. I am a Mexican, I am an absolutist, and I adhere to Aztec Reconstructionism.
Yes, quite the diverse bunch of individuals here at Monarchist General, although we have one thing in common, either an inclination towards or full faith in the institution of monarchy. So I think before we go any further into this wonderful discussion we're about to have here, we need to discuss what monarchy actually is, because a lot of people like to confuse monarchy, dictatorship, and tyranny into one general category as bad. I think Awesome Autocrat, I think you're very well certified to speak on the topic of monarchy. So what do you think monarchy is?
Well, monarchism is ultimately, in my eyes, the most human, or the human ideology. As, if you look through history, the first true governments that were beyond tribalistic coalitions or confederations or whatever, ruled by might, were monarchies, whether that be the Akkadian Empire or early, Indus Valley civilization. Sorry. And overall, monarchism, in its basic form, is the transition of power through hereditary rule. And overall, that ideology can be changed, there are additions can be made to it, there could be specific parameters. But ultimately, the state, the best way to put it, the state is the monarch, and the monarch is the state. They are, in a monarchy, the idea of the monarch should be inseparable from the state, should be ingrained into it, really. That's how I put it.
I think that's a good way of putting it. I would say monarchism is the human government. It's the human form of governance because it's the extension of the family unit past the tribe and past the nation itself to the very government itself. Because in an ideal monarchy, at least in my ideal monarchy, the monarch, the king, the queen, the emperor, the prince, whatever title they take on, is part of their national kin, is ethnically and blood-based related to the people of their nation that they are serving as sovereign of. But one thing that is certainly important in monarchism is that the crown and the individual bearing the crown are separate institutions.
I see. Okay, right.
So, now that we've established the basic view of monarchy here, let's discuss republicanism, democracy, the ideal that everyone seems to love and cherish above all. Even the alt-right now, even communists, they are not really Democrats, but they still appeal to the values of democracy as justifying their ideologies. Top Hat, correct me if I'm wrong, but not too long ago, you were considered borderline leftist, correct?
Yeah, actually. No, I actually was pretty far left for a while until I started doing more research into more more politics, and I don't even know if I made a correct sentence there, but anyway, no, but I started doing more research, and I discovered that that I slowly became more and more libertarian, and less and less, more. I guess I should say more and more free market.
Yeah, I believe many monarchists are either fully capitalist or they're for a mixed economy. I've never really met a full-on socialist or communistic monarchist that was truly monarchist and wasn't just, donning the hood of monarchism so as to avoid being called full-out communist. But why monarchism and not republicanism? I think the best term that really sums up the monarchist mindset is mobocracy. Because democracy, it literally translates to rule by the people. And rule by the people generally is not a good thing, because when the people themselves are politicized, it takes on the totalitarian nature, because the people, that's literally your everyday lives, are politicized. Under a monarchy, when you have that elite, that either one family or group of families that oversees the administration of the nation, and of course the individuals of all walks of life who choose to enter into state service, then it depoliticizes it for the general populace. If you look at the wars of the 1700s up until the French Revolution, there isn't that whole targeting civilians ideal. I mean, guerrilla warfare itself comes from the Napoleonic Wars, which were a result of a Republican revolution, although Napoleon himself wasn't truly Republican.
There's also the idea that, under democracy, people can vote for more and more socialistic things, and because these socialistic things are naturally anti-democratic and stuff like that, people are just going to vote for more and more bigger government, especially if times get hard and people want daddy government to come in and save their incomes. And the same thing will be true if you allow women to vote in the place of families, or if you allow certain groups of people to vote over others. It has a whole set of problems in itself that can lead to a real government disaster if left unchecked.
Yeah, and
it's a self-defeating prophecy, really, how you create a democracy and then eventually the voters just take it away from that, so it sort of just goes back on itself. It defeats the purpose of having a revolution in the first place.
Exactly, and I think a really good case study of why democracy and republicanism itself is destined to fail is the Roman Republic. Because the Roman Republic, similar to the American Republic, was founded due to a perceived or real tyranny by a monarch, and a nation that previously had only known, the institution of monarchy. Well, in America's case, it's a little different because it was a foreign monarch, but in Rome it was truly a Roman monarch. And when the Republic truly ended in Rome, no one really realized it or expected it or hoped for it. In fact, its end came through an attempt to retain it. When Caesar was killed, or Kaiser, I'm not particularly great at pronouncing anything in any language, when he was murdered by the Senate, that's really when I think the Republic died in spirit. And the transformation through the following civil wars, which I would like to point out, Rome during the Republican period had many, many, many civil wars in that brief period of time. In the period following that, when Augustus was declared imperator, he wasn't actually declared emperor. He was declared commander. but the nation was a monarchy at that point. And it wasn't really a hereditary monarchy. It didn't have a very well set succession, and Rome isn't generally considered a true 100% monarchy until its 51st emperor. But regardless, the republican system came to an end, and no one really expected it coming. I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that people in democracies, they always like to think that the democracy can never end, or that, there's always this big threat to it, and like the threat will easily show itself. But when Caesar became dictator, he did so in defense of the republic and the people and the demos, the common man. The Senate, while trying to maintain the republic, did so in defense of the ruling elite, of maintaining this aristocracy, if you will.
Yeah. Ultimately, really, this is I like to speak personally. I personally believe there is a strong correlation between sort of link between revolutionary republicanism, or republicanism in general, and communism and fascism, national socialism. Like, if I had a chance, I would try and write a thesis on it, or try and...
Yeah. I've written a bit on monarchy versus republicanism. And what's interesting is that republicanism, historically, I can think of only 3 examples right off the top of my bat before the French Revolution, and those being the Icelandic Commonwealth, which was very short-lived, the Roman Republic, and Athens. Those are only 3 true democracies I can think of prior to the French Revolution. And it's safe to say that the general trend throughout all these thousands of years of history has been monarchy. I mean, when you go back to the pharaohs of ancient Egypt, they are monarchs, cut and dry monarchs. When you go to the Emperor of Japan, who's still reigning today, although a lot of people don't actually know that he's a monarch. China, up until 1911, that's just over 100 years ago, was a monarchy for all those literally thousands upon thousands of years. The trend throughout history is monarchy until World War One, although after the French Revolution you do see a small growth in it that really culminates itself about a century later in World War One. So I believe it's quite, disingenuous when those advocating republics and republicanism say monarchy is so outdated, or it doesn't belong to the times. It's obsolete.
It's 2017, guys.
Yeah.
In fact, it's 2018 for some people.
Yes, we are recording this on New Year's Eve and on New Year's Day for some of the, more European members of this podcast here. So I think it'd be important to talk about all of the, claimants there are right now and the potential monarchies that could be restored in even the next year. Prime among them, the one that is experiencing a lot of turmoil right now, Iran. The Islamic Republic of Iran. And those of us in the Western world who lean farther to the right than your average individual, hearing Islamic at the beginning of a nation's name probably grinds a few gears. And if you are already monarchist or lean monarchs, I'm sure Islamic Republic probably really grinds your gears.
Yep.
Even more so when you think about the fact that Islam is a very Arab-centric religion, and the Iranians are being forcibly subjugated under the rule of imams and the tyranny of Islam. It's just such a wonderful
Zoroastrian state religion again.
But at the moment of recording, there are protests going on throughout Iran for several days now, and the Crown Prince, the legitimate successor to the Shahdom of Iran. I believe that's the proper term. He is in support of these protests and of the people of Iran, as any true, monarch or potential monarch of their people would be. And the future is looking really bright for monarchism. In Serbia and Albania, Romania, those three nations especially, there is a great amount of support for monarchy. In Germany, there's a significant but not great amount of support. Brazil, yes, many people don't actually realize this. Brazil was a monarchy at one point. It was an empire. What's the status of Portuguese monarchism? Could someone look into that very
I
quickly?
haven't checked. I believe there is an actual graph on Wikipedia showing for monarchism.
Yeah, can you send me that link as well? Because I would like to check that out again.
Isn't that like the 8th most popular? Something like that?
Portugal?
Yeah.
What about Mexico, Mr. Tlatoani here?
There is a lot of support, but I've only seen it on the internet.
Yeah. Of course.
Considering all the corrupt on the Republic right now, I don't think anybody would want to be out loud in public that they're monarchists, because it might get
Okay, I've got a snip of the Wikipedia one. Cody, I will just post it now. For those listening, we may edit something in for video format, but here you are.
Alright, so yes, that's that's very nice. I'm putting this in the stream real quickly. Let me just
Wait, what?
Interesting. These numbers are all very fascinating.
I always take numbers like this with a grain of salt. I always
Yeah, of course.
believe it's at least 2% lower, at least.
Hmm.
But-
Of course.
They still are good-looking numbers. Like Brazil is
Here you go.
very astonishing, actually.
I've added it to the stream so they can see them now. The top
Mhm.
11 support for monarchism.
Wait, sorry.
Georgia is a very interesting number.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, of course.
57%. It's almost as if they never wanted communism to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah, Albania actually should be a monarchy right now, because there was a vote in 1997, and the monarchists actually took part in the brief civil war they had, and the vote was apparently for a republic. The king said that it was a that the vote had been tampered with, and then after his death, and I think in 2012 or 13, former prime minister at the time did mention that the vote was tampered with, and Albania should be a kingdom again.
Yep. And Russia, 22%. That's very, very heartwarming.
Mm.
Well,
Especially in more religious countries, I see.
yes. In Nepal,
Yeah, especially-
49%. It's very interesting how easy it is for Republicans to make it seem as if there is this huge support for a republic in certain nations, like Nepal, when really it's very borderline at the time.
Yeah,
when the
there's actually
republic
footage
established.
of Nepalese monarchist protesters for as far as recently as a few weeks ago. So it proves that not all things are well. I think there's a very latent monarchist feeling in society, especially after Trump and Brexit and people pulling up on the globalist rubbish. It's sort of
Well,
people are beginning
I
to
think
talk about
you're spot on with the
believe-
Trump thing there. Because a lot of former Trumpites have become disillusioned because he hasn't really done what they thought he would. And they've begun to realize that democracy doesn't fully, I'm looking for a word right now, a term. Doesn't fully encapsulate everything that we wish it did. It doesn't achieve what we want.
whether that be either his own incompetence or the US Congress just blocking everything he tries.
Both being aspects of democracy.
Yep. I believe though this is important because there will be more to more quote unquote fringe movements, and I believe it's important for monarchists to help catch them so they don't fall into either the hands of the alt-right or worse, like proper neo-Nazis or people like that. So it's important that we catch them before they fall too far into the wrong rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
So, I've taken damage down. Yeah, I will admit that I've basically been everywhere right of center on the political compass at some point. And although I say I'm an absolutist, I do fall in the very, very bottom right corner on the compass currently. I believe it was like a negative 97, 96, something along those lines.
That's quite impressive.
Yeah. So officially I'm a narco-capitalist, but of course I believe in the state. I don't believe in the state in the modern sense. I believe in more of the feudalist institution where it's consensual and you sign a contract saying you wish to reside in that estate or that nation or whatever territory the monarch rules over as their private and royal property.
Restart that. In terms of the United States, I'd say that, I can't name any monarchist movements off the top of my head. However, I would say that the soil definitely is ripe for such an idea to take hold in this country. There are many areas of this nation that, really wish to either separate themselves or to revive the government, and both of those can appeal to the idea of a monarchy. If you have one person making sure that, the ideals of the movement are not squandered to the bankers or to the internationals or to anyone like that, that can really be a huge strength, and especially in a modern political scene governed by bureaucracy and slow-paced action.
Yes, definitely, indeed. The only issue that a lot of people have with American monarchism is that a lot of Europeans, because they're so opposed to the modern republican order, they just assume all Americans are stupid. So when you do have American monarchists, they get quite literally bullied by them online and forums. And then there's a problem of who would be the monarch of America.
There's, just to quickly answer Todd Talani's question, there is a quote-unquote monarchist party, the Royalist Party USA, and the website has been dead for a few years, unfortunately. However, there are still active Twitter groups, but they're mostly just reposting and don't do much content of their own. So,
are they advocating for House of Windsor?
Well, they want to create a Catholic monarchy, however, have the House of Windsor. I don't know how it will work.
Yeah.
And want to have it run on a distributionist society.
Yeah, that sounds like something that would appeal to a lot of current American monarchists, but not to a lot of people in America at large. So,
and I mean, monarchism in America does exist, especially since one of the most ardent and popular, well-known monarchists on the web, the Mad Monarchist, is from Texas. So,
yes, we all
as well as Charles Coolidge as well, who's also a good monarchist philosopher.
House of Texas, hell yeah.
Oh yeah. But on regards to who should succeed, I've seen many interesting possibilities, like the descendants of someone like Hamilton, find someone related to, or maybe even someone like Kennedy, as more recent as that,
or even Jefferson.
Or Jefferson, yeah. Find descendant of one of the founding fathers, or from popular presidents. Or have it like a coalition of duchies.
Yeah, that could work. That could very well work. Make it something like the Holy Roman Empire.
If I were doing it, I would definitely have it be the United Principalities of America over anything.
Yeah,
I
that's
just love the term
how I feel it would work the most. Like, I think America, like the Holy Empire of Columbia or something like that.
Oh, that's from a mod.
Yeah,
that's from a Crusader Kings 2 mod.
But yeah, so something around that, like more of an elected Holy Roman Empire style, is what I think would work the best.
this is an on the fence question though. For the Americans in here, with the American inside them screaming at them that one man in charge would lead to tyranny. How would such a, like, if we had a bad ruler in place, how would that be counteracted?
I would definitely point at Edward the Eighth and his abdication. He was going to marry a woman that a monarch shouldn't marry because they have a job to fill, and that's what their whole life is leading up to, and he didn't want to fill that role, so his brother took power, and George VI was a very good monarch, in my opinion. And then, of course, there's, various monarchs throughout history there's been palace coups. If it gets really bad, there could be a civil war, but, it's the same as if there was a bad president, usually. The other actors within the state will publicly make a move to get them out of power, and eventually they'll either concede and step down, or in cases outside of America, the president will fight a civil war. It really is no different than any other form of governance, except that there's a lot more stability in monarchies, typically, if you look at the grand record of history, as opposed to republics. And the wars in monarchies are generally less bloody. Unless they're fueled by religious means. 30 Years' War.
But what was it? I was going to say something regarding sort of monarchy in general, American monarchy, is that it sort of has to be sort of a rebranding of America, if that is ever be. Ultimately, I believe American monarchism is close to an impossibility. I never believe in impossible feats, but America becoming a monarchy of its own behalf, at the very least, is almost impossible.
Yeah.
Without major outside interference.
Yeah, I would agree, actually.
And it would require a complete restructuring of what it means to be an American.
Yep, I agree. I believe that if we were to live under a monarchy, it would have to be in the United States, probably somewhere in Europe or possibly in Canada or Southern America. This is just my personal opinion, but I believe that America should remain Republican, because that's what it. I don't know. It's just because that's the principles it was founded on.
I can understand that.
That's just personally my opinion.
Of course, yeah. And I can understand that. Like, I'm fine with republics existing, so long as they're fewer in number. Like, for example, the Dutch republics, the war republics in South Africa.
Batavian Republic or something like that, yeah.
Well, sort of like, if there was never a monarchy beforehand.
Not the Batavian, the Dutch one.
Ah,
yeah,
okay.
Batavian's Napoleon's
and
puppet
stuff.
state.
The what they call
Makes sense.
the orange, those ones. I'm completely fine with them because they weren't on any previously held monarchical land. They were like, I'm fine with the concept of republics existing so long as they are small and not overarchingly powerful. And I would be fine with a few republics existing here, but not to the extent of the world at the moment.
Yeah, I am tolerant of the temporary existence of republics, although I do want every nation to be a monarchy. I don't think forcing it, unless there is like a civil war type of scenario where it's just the scenario came on itself. Like, as a monarchist, I do think that it's very important that you don't advocate for any form of violence. And,
Of course.
taking the offensive with violence. Like,
So it defeats the purpose of the argument of
peaceful monarchy.
against many Republicans,
Yeah.
especially in regards to stuff like the French Revolution And that actually brings us to an interesting question. If democracy is such a brilliant idea, and it's great for everyone, how come the only way you can seem to bring it across is to enforce it through violence and the murder of those who disagree with you? If your system is that great,
That's a good point.
What if your idea is so great? Why does it take bloodshed to make people believe in it?
That's a good point.
There's a lot of ideologies you could say that about, and monarchism really isn't one of them, because monarchism has popped up in every society on Earth naturally through just free-thinking individuals.
Yeah, like, for example, a great example would be South America. The Aztecs and the Incas had monarchs, and they were conquered by monarchs.
Yeah.
And people completely separated, completely different gods, religions, culture, traditions.
Or you could say the
All
Chinese, Koreans, and Japanese all had monarchies.
Yeah.
Yep, until not only the Red Revolution of China, but also of post Second World War.
Yep, Japan's still a monarchy though. The monarchist tendencies of Japan were so strong that even after World War II they still have one.
Yeah, even after their forced constitution.
This actually leads me to a question that I've always had about it. How does a monarch naturally arise?
It's a bit more difficult to discuss in like the current scenario, of geopolitics, because institutions are so large and so ingrained, and states are on such a large scale with industrialization as well. But if we're going to talk about early or prehistory, if you will, a lot of monarchs, like let's say there's a nationalist uprising in a certain region of an empire, the person who emerged as leader of that uprising, if the uprising were successful, would become the leader of that monarchy for that area. So let's say, I don't know, in a hypothetical scenario, the Gauls, the Britons in the Roman Empire, in the early empire, the Britons rose up, and a warrior woman came to the head of them. She would be she would be the queen of them. I don't know, Queen Boudica.
I think an easier example would be Alexander the Great, and when his empire fractured. Same with the Mongols, when their empires fractured, those who were seen as the generals or people who owned those areas then became kings and founded their own dynasty.
Yep.
Yeah, those who are skilled in defending their territory and their people and in administrating areas. So basically the people who are most, skilled and qualified for the job of being the head of a state became the head of a state.
That answers my question. So it's like the tribe champion, metaphorically.
Yeah.
You could say that.
Another scenario is, in some cases, monarchs are elected to their position. For
Napoleon
example,
III.
the Romanov dynasty of Russia was chosen by a council assembled from all the peoples of the lands, were brought to, it's hard to pronounce, the Zemensky Sabor. I've probably butchered that, but it was a council of boyars, nobles, priests, Cossacks, and they all debated on who should be the next Tsar of Russia, and eventually they chose the rebels.
Oh my.
And again, that proves that monarchs can also be elected.
Yeah,
for those people
for a great period of time, the Holy Roman Empire was an electoral system. But I would like to introduce a certain individual to the chat just now, who goes by the Bleach Connoisseur. He's another admin and high-up member at Monarchist General. If you'd like to introduce yourself now.
Yeah, I'm the Bleach Connoisseur. I'm a semi-constitutional monarchist. Been following monarchism for a little over half a year now. I guess you can say I'm pretty new to it. I don't know the most. Still learning a lot of things, especially in Monarchist General. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to add as a note, I've been a monarchist for at least 4 to 6 years now. Although I haven't always had it as my main thing, I've always held in principle that monarchies were always more desirable than republics.
I think we've all had that sort of underlying belief in something. I would, personally myself, I would say most of my life I have supported at least the royal family of the UK. I wouldn't say I was a monarchist because I was ignorant to monarchies beyond the UK mostly, a few exceptions. I would only say about 2 to 3 years ago, I have considered myself a true monarchist, through and through, and I've evolved since then.
Yeah, a lot of people, their political views, unless they're like a major speaker on something who's done a lot of research into it, they'll evolve over time. I mean, that's just normal among people who are really into politics these days. So, but I have found that everyone that I've met who's become monarchist, the whole time I've known them, they've never drifted away from it. I mean, it's not, not to compare monarchism to a religion or a cult or something, but they've never lost faith in it. Because of course it isn't a religion or a cult, because we have very, very different conflicting opinions often, especially among us pagans, Christians, or even within Christianity itself, the Protestants and the Catholics, especially here in Monarchist General.
We had one earlier.
Yeah.
Oh damn. I didn't see that, actually.
Oh, typical shitposter. I have had very...
Rude boy.
Yeah, he was very rude. I've had very good conversations, of course, on the topic with certain members of the group who are respectful and had genuine questions, and then, of course, you have your person who joins the server and says, hey, I noticed this guy's pagan. I'm gonna shitpost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all that. Cody gets so mad.
Almost want to remove the tag so that when people join, they just don't fucking think to do that. But that's more like cucking out, and I don't like to cuck out.
Everyone but Catholics get beat up for their religious views.
Honestly,
That's 'cause
except if you're in the
majority
Wait,
here.
Yeah.
We can all
Hey,
agree
let's
that
pick on the
Catholics are
Protestant
fine.
and call them pagan. Haha.
I've been called a Protestant retard by so many Catholics that I just can't stand the Catholic religion now because so many of them are what I like to call Catholic supremacists who think that if you're not Catholic that you're legitimately sort of inferior to them.
This whole scenario thinking that Protestants don't care about religion, and that's, at least for me, I care deeply about what's going on in the Protestant Church in England at the moment, and I'm disgusted at what we say. But that doesn't make me want to go, I'm going to jump ship, because that's just cowardice in my eyes. If you see a problem, don't jump ship.
You fix it. You don't leave.
Stay down and see if you can fix it.
But religion in general, it's a very divisive topic, and of course politics, which this is all about, is a divisive topic. But I think an important thing in monarchism is that we stay united as a movement, and I'm fine with discussing religion, but it's important that we don't
monarchism
divided.
Naturally, thanks to its ideology, keeps people of different ideologies together, because I run a small monarchist group on DeviantArt. Trust me, I'm not as cringy as you think. But, but I've got Orthodox Christians, Catholics, atheists, a neo-pagan, a technocrat, a couple of Muslims even. And we don't have any arguments with each other. We don't have anything on religion and things like that. And I feel since monarchism is a smaller movement, there is very little
that can divide us.
There's very little divided. We all understand we are not the biggest, so there's no time for petty arguments over God and things like that. We sort of just band together based on that. You don't see the same problems you see with sort of religion, other groups like communists and fascists. No offense to it, but
yeah, because monarchism at its core is, it's about just a form of governance. It's not really about what that particular monarch does. that's where we debate after the monarchy's been instituted.
Yep.
While in National Socialism or fascism or conservatism or all of these other ideologies, they're so concerned with how the particular individual is going to reign before they're even in power that it really destroys a lot of them. I've known plenty of National Socialist groups that have just collapsed like that because they're so focused on their differences.
Yep. That's always a shame with, in my opinion, a lot of authoritarians, is that they focus on their differences as opposed to their similarities.
And many...
Well, not necessarily authoritarian, just more closed-minded people, I suppose.
Yes, because
I should say authoritarian.
Many authoritarian Republicans. That's what I would think I would say, because a lot of authoritarian Republicans just... because Republicanism politicizes every aspect of society.
Mhm.
Every part of every individual. They have to focus on what every individual does. While monarchism, it's about what the monarch does, the example that he sets, the principles that he rules by. And of course, your typical, I said I can't pronounce anything, our typical National Socialists might claim that, National Socialism is about how the fewer or the leader reigns. But the historical record shows that it's not just about that, and if you're going to deny that, then clearly you're not very rationalist. And I don't hate
or
National Socialists.
knowledgeable in history.
Yeah, I don't hate National Socialists,
I do.
but I am heavily opposed to their ideology. I won't just say, "Oh, you're a Nazi." I'm just gonna stop talking to you. No, I'll listen to what they have to say, and I'll disagree, and I'll state reasons why.
I just dislike them because they're socialists.
Better.
Yeah, I
And
do
they
hate
a lot of times when I argue with National Socialists, they often either use very fallacious arguments, or they just flat out refuse to argue or debate entirely.
That's entirely true. It's just I know a good portion of the people who lean towards monarchism have either sympathies for National Socialism, and we want to save them from that, if you will. We want to take them out of that rabbit hole.
The National Socialists are absolutely repugnant people.
Yes, many are.
I've actually been... I'm kind of joining into this a little bit late, but I've been looking into National Socialism. Why should I look into monarchism over National Socialism? Unless this point was already stated and I missed it.
I mean, unless if you want to be a socialist. Just the old jokes aside.
Not be disregarded by society.
I think the best way to address this is to first discuss the French Revolution. I'm not aware of what your opinion on the French Revolution is, but I will state mine, and that it's disgusting.
Yeah,
the
I
French
agree.
Revolution is really the origin, the epicenter of all of these political tremors that we've experienced in the last 2 centuries, leading to this disgusting form of republicanism that we have now. And National Socialism is the final evolution, the final stage of the French Revolution, if you will. Because in National Socialism, a lot of people may not be aware of this, but the German Alsatians in France and Alsace-Lorraine or Alsace-Lothringen, again, I probably butchered the pronunciation.
Lothringen. Alsace-Lothringen.
Thank you. They were mostly tolerated by the royal regimes, by the Kingdom of France. Like, a good point in monarchies is that typically language isn't much of an issue. Because it's just language.
Again, while it is a case-by-case basis, monarchies on average are more tolerant nations, whether it be the Kingdom of Jerusalem or the Mughal Empire under Akbar the Great. Monarchies have a tendency to be more tolerant to people.
Genghis
The monarch
Khan.
acts as a unifying figure for all people, regardless of faith, in some cases. Like, it's an icon that all people can latch to, regardless of their faith or different belief.
But
Is this a justification of civic nationalism, or is it to say that civic nationalism can be more stable under a monarchy?
no, it's the exact opposite. It's to say that civic nationalism is a Republican ideal, that they're so focused on the assimilation into the culture that it leads to genocide. What I was getting at here is that
I disagree.
Well,
But we'll talk about this later.
yeah, but under the French Republic, Robespierre, he saw the Alsatians as a huge threat to the stability of the Republic because they weren't true Frenchmen, because they spoke that horrendous German tongue. And he actually had some, some ideas of how to deal with them that would not be out of place in the National Socialist regime. He considered guillotining all of them. He considered abducting their children and spreading them all over France to be taught to be Frenchmen. And then I forget what the third option was. But
Well, the Republic of France also had their own version of Lebensraum. They wanted to annex the Rhineland, an area that's traditionally had a massive German population and much always in German land.
I guess
But they wanted to anyway.
I'm
Like Bavaria, for example, which was a puppet state under the French monarchy for quite some time.
Yeah, under Napoleon.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank here for the third example I was going to give on how Robespierre wanted to deal with the Alsatians. But essentially, the civic nationalism of republicanism seeks to turn all people into this one mold. And you see that a lot with progressivism. They call for diversity, but then in the same sentence they say, by the way, your grandchildren are going to be brown, when you're for preserving, your own ethnicity. So I think there's a good distinction between civic nationalism, humanism, and ethno-nationalism. And I think humanism and ethno-nationalism are compatible, while humanism is not compatible with civic nationalism. And Top Hat, I'm going to go on a limb here and say you're probably more of a humanist.
Oh, of course. I would definitely say that.
Rather than civic nationalist in the sense that I'm referring to. And a lot of self-proclaimed civic nationalists would say they are civic nationalists when really they're humanist.
Alright. Then perhaps I'm getting my terminology incorrect.
Well, you're not. It's just you're using the correct terminology in the popular sense, but I think we need to, readdress these terms.
In summation of that, under a monarchy, rather than the mixing of races occurring as would happen under a republic, under a monarchy, if there is any kind of ethnic diversity, the cultures are preserved in that case because it's in the interest of the monarchy.
It would really depend on the ruler, I would say, and their policy.
Yes, it would. It's more of a case by case, but as a general rule, diversity is generally preserved in a monarchy that has as few democratic influences as possible. Look at Alexander the Great. Now, Alexander the Great was for a sort of a mixing of Persians and Greeks, but he wasn't for like the total destruction of either. He just wanted to, keep stability. A good example is to look at the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Russia, the Russian Empire, believe it or not, was fairly tolerant of minorities, with the exclusion of Jews. But
how would you describe
multinational empires under monarchs? It's
China? There we go. China is the best example because the Republic of China, although it had the 5 races under one banner, it collapsed basically immediately. The People's Republic of China hates their minorities and has done everything it can to absolutely assimilate and destroy them. But the Qing dynasty literally describes China and justified itself claiming to be China, even though it was ruled by the Manchus, by saying China is a multi-ethnic nation. Because of course you have the Han, and then you have the Manchus and the Mongolians and the Tibetans and the Hakka. I'm not a sinologist, so I can't go into full detail here. Without But China, I think, is the best example of a tolerant multi-ethnic empire.
Now, Austria, on the other hand, would be the exact opposite of that because they wished to Germanize all of the ethnicities that they had controlled.
Indeed, that is true, and I would say that that's more because of the rulers there in that case. But I would say in an alternative but similar case, with the German Empire, the German Empire also sought to Germanize minorities, but that was
Yes.
because of
Like
Republican.
the Silesians, the
Yes.
Silesians and the
Yes,
Poles
I would
that lived
say-
under them.
I would say that's more due to the Republican leanings of the regime, because although Wilhelm II,
Why do you say that?
I would say like how Prussia was semi-constitutionalist rather than absolutist, you know.
Hmm.
And because it's semi-constitutionalist, and that's post-French Revolution, so the entire people are politicized.
Well, Prussia has been around since before the French Revolution.
And I'm not an expert on Prussian history. I'm sure you can probably answer this. Did Prussia try to Germanize the Silesians prior to 1800?
Yes, very much so.
Prior to 1800?
Yes.
Prior to 1750?
Possibly. I'm not entirely certain.
Okay, 'cause-
However, it would
Historically, the Silesians have always been Slavs, but
Mhm.
ever since Brandenburg Prussia conquered Silesia from the Austrians, they've always been Germanic. They've always been trying to be, or they've always been attempted to be Germanicized.
Okay, what year was that? Out of curiosity.
When Silesia was conquered,
Yes.
I believe 1751. I'll look it up right now.
Okay. Well then, Prussia isn't too Republican influenced by that.
No, but Prussia has been around. No, it's actually from. It started in 1740.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, but Brandenburg Prussia has been around for quite some time.
Yeah. 1740.
From 1740 to 1763. This was a series of 2 wars. No, 3. Sorry.
Hmm.
I've got to say, though, it's neat to note that for example, Franz Ferdinand wanted to create a more equal, sort of more, what's it, like United States of Greater Austria, or some others may know it as the Danubian Federation, thanks kind of thing. But to create a more, less hard, what was it? What's it called? Probably a good word. A less monoracial or monoethnic society in Austria, to create more of a more equal rights for the the minorities of Austria.
Yeah, I mean it is kind of unfortunate because the Austrians did inherit Hungary, and the Kingdom of Hungary was very, very multinational, or multi-ethnic, as you can see in modern-day borders. The Kingdom of Hungary was essentially all of Eastern Europe at the time, or all of the Balkans.
During
Balkans,
Prussia's
sorry.
administration of Silesia,
What were you saying, Autocrat?
Austrian government. They did
Or-
feel irked that they didn't have as many rights, but they weren't on full-out rebellion mode. Many
Yeah,
of
of
them
course.
were still content with their place in life and did want to fight for Austria. However, there was an underlying tone of do we want more support, but it wasn't full. We hate them.
Yeah, even though they were pretty oppressed at the time.
so Top Hat, on discussion of the Silesians under Prussia,
Mhm.
by Germanization, was it a forced or was it like a natural progression through German settlers?
It was kind of both, honestly.
Because I just did a quick reading online. I
Mhm.
think it said that they still used Polish language in some official capacity, the Prussian authorities.
I wasn't aware of this. I imagine it was a mix between both. But I imagine it would lean more heavily towards a more gradual progression. But of course, it was intentional.
Yeah, so from what I've read, admittedly from Wikipedia, the Silesia had German colonization. It doesn't say there was like any massacres or anything, and it says that they still published articles in Polish even in 1750, for example, and in the 1800s.
Interesting.
But I do know that under the German Empire there was a desire not to like kill minorities, but to introduce German settlers.
Yeah, to breed them
While
out, of course.
under the Third Reich, they definitely wanted to kill minorities and displace them.
Yeah, of course. But we, of course, do not support the Third Reich.
Yes, no, we're definitely against it. So I guess my statement here on the whole civic nationalism, ethno-nationalism, humanism.
Right, guys, I need to call it now. It's getting
When-
quite late.
A republic.
Of course, autocrat.
When a republic is, quote unquote, colonizing an area, you can see in America, for example, they will heavily oppress the people there. They will do
Of
everything
course.
they can to screw them over. In a monarchy, it's more of a case-by-case thing, as opposed to a republic.
Of course, there's always an argument to be made that correlation.
Sorry, what?
There's always an argument to be made that says that correlation does not equal causation. And just a second, I'll be right back.
Of course. But, for the podcast now, I guess. The, settlement of a territory by a monarchy is not always violence, while often in a republic it is. So, for example, the settlement of Silesia, from what I just briefly read, I mean, if anyone wants to comment on this, please do so. It appears that it was just a gradual settlement, even beginning in the early Middle Ages, naturally.
I have returned.
Alright. I'm gonna cut that
Thank you.
part out real quick, so hold on. A 1, a 2, a 3. So, in a republic, oftentimes, the general rule would be that it is often violent and oppressive when they are assimilating the area, because it has to be assimilated. But in a monarchy, because of the nature of how things would work, being a minority within a larger country, over time it can become assimilated, but it isn't always going to be. And usually it's very tolerant and respectful to the peoples there. Throughout most of history. But I will say, starting in the mid-1700s, and especially in the late 1700s, early 1800s and onward, a lot of democratic influences have seeped even into monarchies.
Yep, I would wholeheartedly agree.
But this can be changed since, it's been such a long time since monarchy has actually been relevant in the West, aside of Britain. And, things can be changed.
Exactly, that's why we're all here. So, do you guys have anything more to discuss or add?
I don't know, we could talk about constitutional absolutism.
Constitutionalism,
Did you get all that?
semi-constitutional absolutism?
Yes, we could discuss that.
That could be a very great topic. I think we'll save that for the second episode, though. If that's all right,
Alright,
guys.
well, how about we cut it off now?
Yep, that's what I was working towards. So this has
All
been
right.
fun, and I'm sure.
Yes, it has been.
Well,
Very enlightening.
Yeah, I'm sure I
I'm
will.
not smoking ever.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll edit a few parts out, which you guys, of course, will never see. But
Yeah, of course.
What the fuck? I love monarchism now.
yeah. Have a great night and blessed Happy New Year.
Happy New Year! Woo!